Now, in the presentation made by the chairman, he indicated that we are looking at a number of issues in terms of the code of conduct and ethics. What does that really mean? The purpose of the code of conduct and ethics is to bring all the stakeholders in the industry under the supervisory framework of the authority. I indicated a little of that at the start. To establish conditions of service for private security workers who might be identified as, we have a proposal, and I'll explain that to you, which are in line with international best practices. I use the word workers so that you're not to confuse it, because we are all workers. Whether you're a contractor, whether you are an independent contractor, or as we are proposing, the term, a new term to be considered, a dependent contractor. And we'll talk more about it as we go along. And to provide a mechanism outside the legislative framework for dialogue. In other words, to establish some place, something, somebody that we can all, as an industry, know that that's the place you go to. So, for example, you know that when you come to us and complain about not being paid late, not getting the minimum wage, we always tell you to go to the Ministry of Labor. Because that's where you have to go. We don't have any remit. We don't have any authority. We can't do anything about that. So we have to send you to the place that is vested with the authority to handle those issues. To ensure the professionalism and preserve the integrity of companies and individuals working in the sector. If the private security industry is to be the valued sector that it is, if it is to have the regard, the reputation, the recognition, and the professionalism, we have to treat the workers, all of the workers in the industry, in a better manner. We have to treat them in a manner that resembles at least at the minimum level. At least at the minimum level. As the chairman said earlier, we are now in 2015. We're not in 18th century Jamaica. We need to do better, and we can do it. As Barack Obama said, yes, we can. We can and we will. Compliance with regulations applicable to the sector. These are some of the main focus of what a code of conduct and ethics is. So in other words, we are going to compile from listening to everybody and put a proposal higher up to the next level of policy that this is what these documents should be, and it will form part of the schedule of the Act, which comes in what we call the regulations. So it will become law. That's what we are saying. Compliance with the regulations, transparency of procedures and systems established by companies. Anybody who read the newspaper 2 Sundays ago would seen an article about a particular company and all of those things. We want consistency, transparency, and the same for all. And the authority will have the power granted to it under the Code of Ethics, being part of the regulations, to visit, to look upon, and to investigate on these matters. License, permits, and authorizations, you are well familiar with those. Selection and recruitment, and I'll deal with that more when I talk about training and certification. We can tell the persons who have gone through 1 hour, because we've sent people back, and say you have to come back in 3 months. because we know that you were not exposed to the minimum standard under the PSRA regulations. And we'll get deeper into that. Here are some of the regulations currently that are applicable to this sector. Private Security Regulation Act 1992 and the regulations, the Employment Flexible Work Arrangements Miscellaneous Provisions Act, Minimum Wage Industrial Security Guards Order, and those get amending over and over, but it started in 1982. But the way laws are done, it's always a reference year, and then it gets amended. So as it has changed over years, the last time it was changed, it was in 2013. And then the Employment Equal Pay for Men and Women Act. I think largely that's not a problem in Jamaica, largely. And we've not had that as an issue. I think most male and female security generally get the same pay. The Recruiting of Workers Act and the Shop and Offices Act. That's a very old act that used to say you can't open on a Sunday and all of those kind of things. So transparency of procedures and systems, you can move that along. It's particular reference to the companies, and I want to get into the things that, so we say staff recruitment policy, rule books, training policy, register of security incidents. These are the things that we want to ensure are in place. Our orientation policy, which incorporates the code of conduct and ethics. Because we have heard from people who say, well, they just tell me if I come register and no training at all. They didn't even tell you the word PSRA and what it means. So we are saying there has to be at least that minimum standard. And in the process, these are the things we are saying that companies can do. Candidate skill set, looking at vetting personnel and assessing moral values and respect for the rule of law. Companies, and we are expecting that the companies will support the application of a transparent and fair licensing system upon which we will rest these things. Training and certification. Now we have this is the baby era for me, because you cannot have a professional body if you do not have certification and training. The best domestic help I've ever had was a graduate of a heart program. And let me tell you about her. The first time she came to work for me, I went home and there was a duck on my bed. And when I went into the bathroom, there were little roses and things. She went into the garden and she cut some ginger. I kid you not. Those are the things that Cheryl do. And you know what I did for Cheryl? The first time they have a hotel workers program, I said Cheryl on it. Big mistake. Cheryl don't come back. Cheryl married, go American married. But guess what? Ever so often, Cheryl will send something for me, and I have to say, Cheryl, save your money. But she always said, Miss Campbell, God bless you. Every so often she would call me and send something. But I was just so impressed. And people would see me, I kid you not, I come to work, and they would look at me and they say, man, your helper can wash. My white shirts were white. Not cream, not slightly yellow, white. She took pride in what she did. But you know what? She was trained. And people generally think that if you are a domestic helper, you don't need no training. And not true. Because me have one now, give me a hard time. And me tell her, I send her go. No, I tell her, I say, I send you to go over Trinity. Go learn how to dust. People think it's automatic. I can't cut cane. People talk about how cane cutter is casual work. Well, me come from Westmoreland half of the time. The next half, me come from St. Elizabeth. And I can tell you, cutting cane with a Spanish machete. You know what is a Spanish machete? It has two sides. And they cut like this. Going down. You think I can do that? Of course not. Me that chop off my 2 foot. It couldn't happen. And you couldn't do it either. So it's a skill. It's a skill. And when you take pride in your work, you want to ensure that you do it to the best of your ability. Let me tell you the security story. There was a security guard in Ocho Rios at Burger King. And I remember saying to Mr. Lake, I said, dear God, you can't pay that security guard. When you enter, he opens the door. Every customer, welcome to Burger King. I was so impressed the first time I see it. And I had another experience with another security guard at Sandals. And I also said Butch couldn't pay him because he said, I wanted a newspaper. So I came downstairs and I said, she was the first person I see. And that's the importance of security. Most times you are the frontline person. You are the receptionist. You are the telephone operator. You are the person who provides the info. In the bank, if you go in a NCB or Ligani, that is the person that I say, which form I must fill out? Come here, I get a little old. I look good, don't you? But yes, but I am a senior citizen. So sometimes I have to say, because no matter how we trained and full of education, some things floor you. It don't look as simple as it is. So you are the frontline person. So here I am in Sandals. I've gone downstairs, and I want a newspaper. So I saw the security, and I said, I'd like to get a newspaper. Where can I buy one? He says, buy? You don't buy the newspaper in my hotel. My hotel, he said. He said, madam, what room are you in? And I told him. He said, just a moment. And I went back to my room, and the paper came. And I had to write a story. When I did, I found out that that is how he behaves with everybody. And he always gone on a trip. People always give him gifts and all of that. Just because he takes some pride in doing. And he will not leave. Because he gets probably more than his little pay can ever add up to. But a lot of times, we come to the business of security work with an attitude and a chip. With an attitude and a chip. You assume that everybody is going to treat you in a particular way, and then you get treated in that way. Because the mind leads you. All right? So let us link all of that now. So first of all, what we have is what is regarded as a basic training. Now that is going to be detailed for you by two members of the staff of PSRA, and we'll introduce them at the appropriate time. Then there is specialized training from the recognized programs. And today we have invited the leading company, and he doesn't like for me to say the wrong name, but it's a little thing. And it is the Industrial Security Professional Training Center. When we embarked on this path, because this is not new, we started this in 2006. It's like pulling teeth with, whatever them used to use in the old time days. We have been struggling with this program, and we are not embarrassed to say this. We have been struggling with this program of training and certification for registered private security guards. I still have to use the term guards because we have recommended that name change, which will be part of this, but until that day, it's still private security guards. So we have been struggling with this since 2006. The first set of persons to come on board was Industrial Security Protection Company. Allied, you were Allied at the time, before you did the training. So it was Allied Company. And in 2008, we had our first set of graduates of 56 persons. Very outstanding graduates. And wherever any one of them is placed, you know You know when you see them because their behavior is different, their treatment is different, everything about them is different because you can tell that here is somebody that has had a certain level of training. Because another thing that the training and certification does, it gives you some pride in what you do. Give you some pride in what you do. And then we have the specialized programs, as I said, so that's one. The second one is City and Guilds. Now, City and Guilds is more recent, and they have come on board. So between 2008, the very next time another company came on board as an accredited training organization, which means that HEART has granted them the authority and to say they have the right curriculum, they are doing things correctly, and they can grant the certification in our name under our auspices, is Guardsman, and that did not happen until 2013. So between 2008 to 2013, that's all we have had. So we decided that we had to pursue other ways to help the security industry. Here comes City and Guilds. City and Guilds is a 150-year-old institution, and that institution grants certification from the basic level to the master's level in security. So you can grow in this. And I want to tell you, I'm not telling you so you can run, but I don't have no problem with it. When you get the certification from HEART, you can work anywhere in the Caribbean. You can work in Canada. And I can tell you, I signed the letters. I have done quite a few of the persons, a lot of them mostly in the Caribbean, and a few of them from Canada. When you get the City and Guilds certification, you can work anywhere in Europe, in addition to Jamaica and the Caribbean, because they are recognized in these places. But like everything else, certification will come to a cost. I'm an attorney at law, and I can tell you, is millions of dollars it costs when you add it up over the 5 years. The 3 years to do the LLB, and then the 2 years to do a Norman Manley, so that you can practice. Because it's not everybody who study law can practice, you know that. You have to go to law school in order that you can practice. And a lot of people stop right there. So they have the legal knowledge, but they are not practicing, or they can't practice law. You have to go to law school to practice law after you get what we call the substantive law. So it's the same thing here. You have been doing the work, some of you, for years, but you have not had any certification. So who cares that you are a security for 15 years? What you have to show for it? What you have to show for it? Oh, I know how to do this and I know how to do that. So do I. You have to have some certification. You have to have something that says, I am granted by this institution, and it says I can do this. And I can do it at a certain level. It's the same reason people go to school and get bachelor's and master's and doctorate and law degree and medicine degree and our medical, same thing, degree. It's the same thing. Every industry, in order for it to be valued, that man worked all night, poor thing. Him been sleeping from as soon as the anthem finished, he started to sleep. Let him rest. No, but serious, let's move it along. So you are going to get those specialized information on the different programs. I'm just giving you the broad sweep. All of this we want to put in the code of conduct. And all of it is not new because the PSRA basic has been here. Thank you. So, and then there is for the next level, because you shouldn't be in an industry and don't aspire to go to the top. The ASIS training is for PSP, PCI, and CPP, and those are equivalent training to bachelor's and master's in other areas in the world. organizations. Move it along. All right. A critical part of the Code of Conduct and Ethics that we want to look at: working conditions, salaries and income, health and safety, equal opportunities and non-discrimination on the organization of work. And that is where National Family Planning Board comes in, because they are going to, these are human rights issues. We treat them as if they are, favors, but they're just everyday human rights issues. So here's our proposal. Private security guards must not be paid less than the minimum wage as prescribed by law. That's our first one. Our second one, private security guards must not be scheduled to work more than 12 hours per day. Here's why we say that. We have to have variations for specific industry. In nursing, in medicine, it's normal for people to work 12 hours, So we're not coming to say that you have to get an 8-hour day. It is not a practical thing for this industry. It's just not. It's just not. So I would not be part of any process that would come to tell you that is 8-hour day we're talking about. It's not practical. It does not fit the industry. So what you do should look as how the industry is. So it will fit. So this is why this is our proposal. And besides, it's a minimum standard in the International Labour Organization Convention of a 12-hour maximum. Private security guards should work no more than 6 consecutive days per week, to be followed by a 24-hour rest day. It is to your detriment to work 7 consecutive days, and 7 consecutive days, and 7 consecutive days, and 7 consecutive days. 1 whole month without rest, you will chop off your foot. That is how the boy in Mandeville got his head bashed in. He had worked several weeks, 7 days, 7 days, 7 days. If the human body needs rest, it needs rest. So we are saying, and we are doing this because it's at least at the minimum standard. And here's why. You work for companies. We don't want them to go under. You understand? Because you have to think about that too. We are not here to propose things that we think a sudden shift will put the companies under. So you have to think about that. Because sometimes we kick over the bucket with the bathwater. We don't want to do that. We are not proposing that. But we are saying this is a modern world, and there are some basic minimum standards that we need to adhere to. Comply with the Minimum Wage Act by providing insurance, a standard benefit of providing to security guards 10 days paid leave annually after 1 year continuous unbroken service. But most important is full-time hours. So I know some people have a thing and them come and they will work 3 hours here, so and then gone and them run go Cayman and then come back and then think, no. 1 year, unbroken, continuous service. That's our proposal. That's our proposal. And we want you to know these things are proposals. But we believe they fit the minimum standard under the International Labour Organization Convention. That's where we are at. And we are saying that the appropriate level of remuneration, salary payment, adds to the appeal of the industry, and maintenance of appropriate salary levels reduce the risk of unfair competition from companies. Because if you're all on the same page And you all, for example, let's look at the banking industry. Every bank not pay exactly the same, but there are certain guidelines and certain regulations that they adhere to based on the ILO standard. And you would not find that it is so dramatically different for teller 1 to teller 2. Sometimes people move not because of money. Sometimes it's just for a change. We want that to be happening in this industry. So we say that this will lead to greater productivity and ensures a high level of service quality and ensuring that the company you work for is competitive. Because you want the company to stay in business. It's not that you want them to be out of business. You want them to stay in business, because if they are not in business, there's no you and there's no us either. So it's a win-win for all of us in it together. So we are saying that you should provide a letter of employment to whether the name, we say dependent contractor, your pay rates, emoluments, it can be electronic, but it must be transferable. Because guess what? It's a modern world. And I can tell you from my own experience, and I've told this story many times, that about 5 years ago, I went to Tampa, Florida, where my best friend lives, and I'm lying on the bed while she's working with Progressive. And she's answering the phone and doing all of that, and in between we are chatting and stuff, and I said, then Pat, then I hear we. She said, no, the technology have noise reduction in it. They can't hear a word we are saying. And she spoke to different people until she started to speak to a Jamaican. And as it turned out, I kid you not, is somebody I knew. So I said, tell him that I'm right here. I ended up talking to the person. But what I'm saying to you, times change. And then when she gets her pay, guess what? It come on a card. She does not go into the office at all. That alone saved her about $300 a month, because she didn't have to drive every day into the office, plus all the wear and tear on her car that it saved. She got a card, and that's what they paid her on, right? But she had the ability, if required, to print it, to print her information. So we are saying, if your competitive edge is electronic transfer, nothing is wrong with it. Nothing is wrong with it, but you must have the ability, if required, for it to go on paper. Pay over deductions for salaries and to relevant organizations on a timely basis. You know by now that I have a lot of stories. I have a helper named Peggy. Peggy came after Cheryl. Cheryl is my first love. Peggy came and worked for me, and Peggy never want to pay no NIS. So I said, Peggy, you're going to love me when you can't walk. Everybody in here know Peggy, because Peggy still come to look for me at PSRA. And Peggy says this. She said, Miss Campbell, every Sunday when I eat my dinner, I say, God bless Miss Campbell. You so much blessing me about her road. Guess what? She didn't want to pay the $50 at the time. It's now $100. She didn't want to pay the $50. I said, Peggy, go pay the $50. So when you're old, you can get something. And I'm saying to you, it shouldn't be that I have to say this, but if your employer is not paying your NIS, go pay $50 or $100 a week, because you will get at a minimum a NIS payment when you come to retirement at 65. We are trying to fix this, you know, but don't wait on it. I'm just giving that as free advice and not charging. I'm not charging for that one. If you're at a point, I will say to you, make sure, because in this country called Jamaica, we tend not to plan for the years when we cannot work. And at a minimum, if you get your NIS, you can eat a good Sunday dinner and pay JPS. You understand? You have to make plan for that. But what we are saying outside of that is, we would want in our code of conduct a requirement that gives us the power as the authority when you come for renewal, that you have to pay over your deductions. I have to speed it up. So companies provide employees with personal protection equipment where needed, transportation allowance as required. What that means is not to say you get off of work 9:30 and then if you have a bus park out there for you jump on. Because it don't work like that. But equally, if you get off of work at 1 a.m. in the morning and you are out at the airport, it is not fair to expect that you must jump on GAUTC. No, sir. So therefore, at that point, so is reasonableness on both sides in the question, and a viable means of communication, especially in dangerous circumstances. Because some of you work in dangerous places, and you can't be there by yourself, and if something happens, not even a little coog phone to call somebody, or even to bawl out, and somebody could hear, but I hear that on the phone, all right? Now the health issues, and as I said, National Family Planning will focus on these. I know a lot of you think say ganja is legal. It's not legal. Don't make nobody fool you. It's not legal. And I know me people, and know no love and no like a ganja thing. Come and see the red eye them all the time. They want them from sleep. Me know those different. Yes, it's not legal. Don't make them fool you. But she will explain it to you. Sexual harassment in the workplace. All these are issues that we want to put. Relations, health. Move it through. Move it through. Move that through. We are looking at the professional relationships with the clients. We will have that, and I know that's a concern for companies because we have to do something with regard to clients, because some of the clients, they're asking things that trying to force you to behave illegally. So we are saying if we have a code of conduct, and it will also be to the client's benefit, because if they do not behave in the manner of it, there are penalties equally to the clients as there will be to the company. So it is an environment. Listen, what we're saying is not new. What we're not creating no wheel. These things happen around the world. That's what we're doing. All right? So the code of conduct, keep going. Keep going. So let's look at there's a missing one. No, go back up. Keep going. Go to the bottom, let me see something. She put it in the other place. The amendments of the act, the chairman alluded to it. So, here's the proposals, and that's all part of all of the things we are putting forward. Expand the categories of workers under the act. Now, a whole heap of you working on all kind of things, vault cashiers, you transferring cash, personal protection, all of those things. So those are some. Make it mandatory for all guards to have on their person at all times while working their PSRA issued license. We are the authority. So therefore, we are saying, you must, a gentleman over there, he has it on, I can see it. You should have it. We will even indicate how you should wear it. In other words, so that some people don't have it here, son, some have it here, son. You understand? You understand? We're going to say you have to come up here, anything above the waist. And then, as I said, we'll identify, which is generally, our thinking is above the waist. Establishment of a tribunal or some dispute resolution mechanism. There's a lot of disputes, and we need to have a dispute resolution mechanism established to deal with issues, whether it's between guard and company, company and guard and whatever. We think that is a critical part. And then there's penalties we want to recommend for these things, because we know we people too. Don't care, not care, and you can't say what you want. You have to have penalties. So we said the first offense, a warning, the second offense, go back, suspension, the third offense, revocation. Go up one now. The key elements then of the code of conduct, and then I'll sit down. 12 hours maximum workday. Maximum 6 consecutive workdays to be followed by a minimum 24-hour rest. Provide personal protection equipment where required. Transportation provided when necessary. Pay minimum wage rates at the minimum. In other words, if you can afford to pay 20% above that, so do it, because a happy worker is better for your organization. But at the minimum, no one should be below the minimum wage rates. Pay attention to the insurance on the Minimum Wage Act, the health and safety issues, the conditions of work, and we are asking that this become a schedule of the PSRA Act, in other words, law. Training and certification, critical, and we spent a good while on it, and you'll have the details after. Dependent contractor, which is what I have said to you is our proposal for how we would categorize workers in this industry. And it is a person, whether or not employed under a contract of employment, and whether or not furnishing tools, vehicles, equipment, machinery, or any other thing owned by him, who performs work for another person for compensation or reward on such terms and conditions that the person is in a position of economic dependence upon and under an obligation to perform those duties for that person. So that is our proposal. I know most of you and most of the industry operates on contract, and they say they are independent contractors. But generally, most times, that term is at another level. So we are saying this is not in law. We are proposing to put that under the PSRA Act so it will be specialized to security industry, because there are special needs, there are specialized things that need to happen to address it. And then the one before was security provider. As the chairman indicated, we are moving to ask to say practitioner, personnel, or provider, and to move the term guard, because you're all doing all kind of different things. And that's enough for me.